A long time ago, way before you were born, a group of white people made up an idea called race. They sorted people by skin color and said that white people were better, smarter, prettier, and they deserved more than everybody else. This would be taught if we socialize our pre-K system. This would be taught.
Do you disagree with that findings in the book?
1,000%. How about we teach Jesus loves me? How about this? In teaching Jesus loves the little children, the lyrics go, red and yellow, black and white, they're all precious in our sight. Now, which one would you think would be better? I'll ask everybody on the panel, which is better to teach? This, that is a story that was made up to teach our kids, 3-year-olds who have no idea what race is, now all of a sudden is being taught that white people said this as a truth. Someone point at me that this being a truth, that white people developed race, that white people developed that all of a sudden that was our word that we developed. By the way, I'm Cherokee, Native American. I think we have experienced a little bit of racism before in my life, Chairman.
Senator Mullen.
So I ask everybody on the panel, which one is better to teach? This or the Jesus Loves Me lyrics? Ma'am, I'll start down here. Just tell me which one. I don't have time for an explanation.
What I'll tell you, Senator Mullen, is that what children in these early years develop their identity.
The question.
It's
the question is which
it's
one
important that our classrooms are.
I'm just asking which one is better.
Let her answer the question, please.
My question is this.
She will answer it if she sees fit.
Which one is better?
It's important that children's identity and language and culture are recognized.
That's not answering my question.
And that's what creates strong executive function.
If you don't want to answer my question, that's fine. Let's move on down the panel. Which one is exactly, that's exactly what it is.
Got it on tape.
Misspoke. So what I'm saying is which one is which? Which one is better to be taught, Mr. Chairman? Is it this or is it the Jesus?
Is your question directed to me or Ms. Bowman?
Well, you keep interrupting me saying they're not answering the question.
And
I wish you'd really stay out of my questions.
It's his question. He gets to dictate it.
Which one?
Not dictated. Ask the question.
Which one?
Talking to Ms. Bowman, right?
Yes.
As I stated, Jesus is always first.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Okay, so the argument this man is making is that he doesn't agree with the idea that racial classification was created by white men. But when you actually look at the history, that is exactly what happened. Racial classification didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was developed during a time when European powers were expanding, colonizing, and trying to dominate other parts of the world. None of those classifications were designed in a way that placed white people at the top, while labeling others as inferior. This wasn't random. It served a purpose. These systems helped to justify slavery. They helped justify colonization. They helped justify why one group of people could control, exploit, and rule over others. When Europeans were moving into Africa and other regions, these ideas became even more popular because they needed a reason to make what they were doing seem acceptable. And it didn't stop there. Racial classification was just one of the many systems that were built in America to benefit white people. Over time, these systems shaped opportunities, access, and power in the society. But here is where it gets interesting. Now we are starting to see situations where even some white Americans are questioning these same systems. In fact, I want you to listen to the story of this white woman who chose to leave the United States.
As an American, there are some things that you can truly never fully understand until you leave the United States. I moved out of the United States 2.5 years ago, and since then, there have been moments where certain things happen that completely and utterly break everything that I've ever known. And today, one of those things happened. I'm currently living in Germany, and very recently, I just got a part-time barista job. It's completely a part-time thing and just something for me to make some extra cash on the side. And I literally cannot even work more than 20 hours a week per my resident permit. And I haven't even started working yet, but there are some things about this job that have already broken me in a good way. As I'm in talks with the boss trying to get this job, I'm expecting okay, we'll do an interview or something and they can see if they like me or not. And the boss emails me about they don't do like an interview, they do like a tryout day, and they're telling me like come in for the tryout day and see if you like it and if you fit in with the environment well. And when I went in for the tryout day and like all went really well and stuff, the boss asked me at the end, so like if you feel good about this job, like if you like it, if it suits you well and you think you might want to stay here, then just like write me an email and let me know by like Tuesday or whatever. And they're not saying anything about like whether they even like me or not. Like all the focus seems to be on whether like I like the job and I want to stay there. Like I ended up having to ask like, well, do you like me? Like my German isn't so good, so like is it okay or is it like a problem? Like how do you feel like I fit in with the environment? And only then did I hear from the boss like that, yeah, they liked me too. And then as we're going through the hiring process, like the first thing that they tell me is like, okay, the paperwork should be ready to sign in like 2 weeks. First things first, I need a little bit of information from you. And the first thing she asked me was, when do you want to take your vacation days this year? Literally the first thing that they asked me. Guess how many vacation days I get for a part-time 20-hour-a-week barista job? I am allotted 36 vacation days, or 6 weeks in a 6-day work week schedule. 6 weeks. But the thing that broke me today was an email from my boss telling me that not only is it possible for me to go on the public healthcare system, but it's literally required for me to. For context, this has never been possible for me before, and since I turned 25 and moved outside of the United States, I've only been able to have essentially travel insurance. And now through the German public healthcare system, I can pay into it and then see pretty much any doctor that I want to, as long as they have an available appointment for free or pretty much free. And the amount that you pay into it is like 100 euros a month. I haven't been to a dentist in like 10 years, and I know that partially that's definitely my fault, but I literally through like the public health insurance, it's like required for you to go like twice a year. I was like kind of freaking out when I first got the email, and I was like texting my German friends so that they could like help me understand better, and because like I translated it, but I was like, I don't want this to be like a false translation or something and me get my hopes up for no reason. And they were like, congratulations, like, but I was like really overwhelmed by it, and they were like, I don't understand what the big deal is. Like, yeah, of course anyone in Germany who makes more than like 600 euros a month, they automatically can go on the public health insurance. And they're asking me like, what, you didn't know that? And I'm like, no, I did. Like, why would I have even expected that or thought to research something like that? We don't even have a public healthcare system like this. And a 20-hour-a-week barista gig would never give you social safety nets from. Why would I have ever thought to look something like that up? I'm used to a part-time job giving you nothing. I'm used to public healthcare not even really existing. I'm used to things being impossibly expensive. I'm used to things being intentionally made to be as difficult as possible to deter people from obtaining them. I'm used to things being unforgiving and uncaring and unhuman. Like, I can't believe how easy it was for me to obtain the essential care that every human being needs and deserves just by serving a little bit of coffee.
You thought it was going to be us. And we said no. It was supposed to be us with the knees on our backs. It was supposed to be us with the bullets in our chest. It was supposed to be us getting dragged away, which is why the Trump administration was so antagonistic of black people to begin with. But when they figured out that we weren't going to show up, that we weren't going to take the bait, they still had to figure out a way to put the fear of God in people. And you didn't think that it would be you. You thought that they would find someone else. You thought that you would be able to sit back and just say, oh my God, that's so terrible. Why would they treat people like that? And be able to live above it, but it's you. Tyranny always comes for you at some point. And it's here. Another person, another white man, another apparently straight white man with a good career serving his community is dead at the hands of ICE. Bullets in his chest for standing up to the American government. It wasn't supposed to be you, was it? It wasn't supposed to be you. You didn't think the leopards would eat your face, but this was the plan all along. The only wrinkle to the plan is that they thought that they would use black bodies like they always did. Through slavery, through Jim Crow, through the black codes, through the civil rights movement, they thought that they would be able to establish their power, that they're this new world order, that the secret police are legitimate by showing you what they were willing to do and capable of doing to black bodies, but black bodies didn't show up. And now they're using you. Now they're saying it's illegal to go into your house without a judicial warrant. That's what they're doing. And I'm going to tell you something, we ain't showing up. We still not doing it. What's happening here is not right. But no longer will black people put themselves on the front lines for people who are willful in making sure that we're cannon fodder when the rubber meets the road. Rest in peace to that man, Jeffrey, man. You didn't deserve that. You were just trying to defend somebody. And I'm sorry that it's you. I'm so sorry that it's you. But they didn't think that it would be y'all. And here we are.
Okay, I'm gonna say this because it's true, but I'm not saying it because I'm racist. I'm talking about with my sister-in-law how white people do not move over for you. I go to a PWI. I have stopped moving over for white people. I have bumped into so many white people. They take up the whole sidewalk. They walk in groups. When you're sitting down and you have like your leg crossed, they want you to move their leg. I have this girl in my comparative government class. I sit down with my leg crossed and she just stands there. And I'm like, I literally stopped moving for her. I stopped moving for her because you can't say, excuse me, you can't form those words out of your mouth. You have no home training, none at all. And it pisses me off. But anyways, that's my rant for today. Have a lovely day, guys.
I pissed off the black community. I definitely pissed off the black community, and it is what it is. I don't know what you want me to tell you. But apparently I am uneducated. So let's go through why I said what I said in that video, because I stand 10 toes down on it. Back in the 1600s, black people, specifically Africans, were not just stolen. They were sold off by other Africans. At that time, slavery wasn't really a term or a thing. They had indentured servants. These servants had time limits of how long they were going to be working. So after these 3 years, you're free to go. And honestly, truthfully, a lot of these men and women chose to become indentured servants because it wasn't a forever thing, it wasn't a long thing, and they would be able to freely come into America. Not saying that it was right, I'm just saying some of these men and women did go by choice so they could leave their home country. Most of the people that were put into servitude, it was for a few reasons. It could have been they were captured and sold off, they could have committed a crime, or they were indebted to somebody, they owed someone something. What I said in my video, what I didn't specify was that I clarified this in the comments immediately after uploading, but just not in the video specifically, but before this drama took place. I clarified it right when I put up the video, but I was talking about in the US, not the entire world, because that predates, what, 10,000 years? I was not getting into all that. So I was talking about here at home. That is because of Anthony Johnson, who back in the 1620s was a servant, not a slave, a servant. So eventually, when he was done with his servitude, he was given his freedom. And this man accumulated so much money. He was making so much money that he ended up purchasing a bunch of land. Now, he accumulated over 200 acres of land over that time, and he also accumulated about 15 to 16 slaves, 6 or 7 of them being African American, and the rest being white. Or, I'm sorry, servants, not slaves. Things went awry a few years later, around 1653, I think, one of those, where one of his servants, last name of Kaser or Kasser, left because he claimed that his servitude was up and expired, so he left to go work for a different owner. Anthony Johnson then brought it to court and sued that family to have Kasser be returned to him. After a couple of years through the Virginia court system, they actually went in Johnson's favor and brought Kasser back to Anthony Johnson, claiming him as a slave for life, thus creating slavery, legal slavery, not servitude, legal slavery here in America. It was because of Anthony Johnson, who was a black man. Every single background and origin on the planet has been oppressed or enslaved or servants at some point in time. White race did not invent slavery, but they were the race that ended it. It wasn't even a race issue when it was first created. It was a class issue. I say in many, many other videos, if I missed anything or forgot anything or didn't know something, feel free to comment it below. I don't care. I'm always open to conversation. I love talking about this kind of stuff. But for tens of thousands of black people to get up in my comments daily and call me uneducated or God knows what else, yet not one of them actually is doing the educating, how do you expect people to learn if you are unapproachable and mean?
Oh, okay. That was something. But you said you wanted to be educated, right? I mean, that's what you said. So come on in and hurry up because you didn't already miss too many classes as it is. Let's jump right in, shall we? And start with the fact that you didn't just miss a few details here. What you did was build an entire argument on half truths and then acted confused when people reacted. And I took a look at your page because I was trying to understand the voice that you're speaking from. And it's clear to me that you try to present yourself as someone who tells hard truths, as someone who leans into uncomfortable conversations that other people might avoid. But what you said wasn't controversial, it wasn't bold, it was incorrect. And what really stood out to me is how you tried to frame it as confidence, opening with, I'm standing 10 toes down, which is ironic because your first instinct was to borrow language rooted in Black culture while speaking negatively about Black commenters just to make your point feel more solid than it actually was. But I digress. Because the way you ended the video told a completely different story. You said, educate me. Hey, I love these conversations. Don't just get on here and be mean. But your words and your delivery are completely incongruent. Your tone is defensive, and there's a level of condescension in how you speak, followed by a pivot into victimhood the moment people respond. That's not standing 10 toes down. That's you realizing that the response wasn't what you expected, so you're trying to soften the impact. If you really loved these conversations, right? If you actually wanted to learn and teach others, you wouldn't speak in that level of arrogance to the very people whose ancestors were impacted by over 400 years of this brutal history. And those people, by the way, have every right to feel emotional about it. The real question is, why are you? So this isn't about people being mean. It's about you speaking boldly on something that you're not fully informed on, and then asking for softness the moment that you're corrected. Now let's get into your claims, because this is where things really start to fall apart, okay? You first say that you didn't want to get into the slavery that existed outside of America because it was too much and it went too far back. But then you brought it up multiple times, but only when it supported your point. So which is it? Is it too much to get into, or is it something that you're comfortable using when it helps your argument? Because you can't selectively pull from a broader history to support your point and then ignore that same history when it complicates it. You reached outside of America to say that Africans sold Africans and that slavery existed before it became racial. And I already know that your next move will say, well, that wasn't real slavery, it was indentured servitude. But if that's the case, then you can't use it to support your argument in the first place. Either it counts as part of the history or it doesn't, because the moment you pull from that broader timeline, you also then have to acknowledge that systems of enslavement existed long before America, which effectively means that Black Americans could not have created it as you claim. The real truth is that no one race or group invented slavery or back then indentured servitude. It shows up independently across multiple civilizations thousands of years before America even existed. So you can't have it both ways. Either we stay within the context of American slavery or we include the full global history. But the moment you open that door, your entire argument collapses. So we'll focus on American slavery. Next, your entire argument hinges on the idea that Anthony Johnson, a black man, won a court case in 1655, and somehow that means that black people created slavery in America. Yes, he was a black man who won a court case, but using that to claim black people created slavery completely ignores the fact that the legal framework, the court systems, and the power structures making that ruling possible were already being built and controlled by white colonial authorities. That case didn't create the system. It operated within a system that was already taking shape. If anything, it honestly just shows how the colonies were already shifting toward lifetime servitude and how those courts were willing to enforce it. One case inside of a system does not equal authorship of the system. And what you completely fail to mention are cases like John Punch in 1640, 15 years before your Anthony Johnson example. He was a black man sentenced to lifetime servitude, while the white men with him only received extended contracts. That's one of the earliest legal distinctions between black and white labor in the colonies. That's the foundation of racial slavery, not Anthony Johnson. You then go on to say that slavery wasn't about race, it was about class. And yes, early on, there were systems that looked like that. But in America, it was intentionally transformed into something else. Laws were put into place to make blackness synonymous with enslavement. And that didn't just happen because one black man won a court case. This required legislation. It required court rulings, plural, policies that were written, enforced, and expanded over time. Make no mistake, this was a system that had to be codified, built piece by piece, decision by decision, until blackness itself became the condition for lifelong, inheritable enslavement. That was not accidental, and it wasn't created in a single moment, but it was constructed here in the colonies by white power structures. You also brought up that all races were enslaved at one point. And yes, different groups experienced forms of enslavement throughout history. But the way you're using that point makes it seem like you're trying to equalize these experiences. And they're not the same, not even close. What was built in America wasn't just another version of what existed before. The scale, the permanence, and the racialization of it were fundamentally different. So collapsing all of that into everyone experienced slavery doesn't clarify anything. It actually just erases the horrific reality of what actually happened. And saying white people didn't invent slavery, but they ended it, while completely ignoring who built, expanded, and profited from this system, becomes even more misleading when you actually look at what was created here. Because while forms of slavery existed before, the racial hereditary system of chattel slavery in America was constructed and formalized and enforced by European colonial authorities. And that wasn't incidental, it was strategically engineered. So you don't get to erase who built the system and then turn around and take credit for ending it. So no, Black people did not invent slavery. But you know what Black people did invent though? The technologies that led to the Wi-Fi you abused to come on here and stand 10 toes down on and miseducate people with. Lastly, I saw your comments and this whole no one is educating me, everyone's just being mean narrative. People are correcting you. You're just not engaging with the corrections. Instead, you're deflecting and defending the original take. This isn't about people being unapproachable. It's about you speaking confidently on a topic that requires more depth than a few surface level facts. If you actually want the conversation, then start with the full history and stop trying to shape it to fit the narrative that you want to push. Because the audacity to speak this confidently and this dismissively on a topic like this, while being incomplete in your understanding, is exactly why people are correcting you.
Okay, I'm not even going to overcomplicate this, but there are a few things that need to be said clearly. First of all, that racial classification mentioned in the first clip, this idea of labeling people as black, white, yellow, and all of that, it is a social construct. It didn't just happen naturally. It was built, shaped, and pushed during a time when European powers were trying to dominate other people. That is a fact. When you look at the history, scholars like Johann Friedrich started grouping human beings into categories, but it didn't stop at physical description. They added value to it. They started attaching ideas like intelligence, beauty, and morality to those categories. And guess what? White was always placed at the top. Now, think about it logically. How do you go to Africa, look at the people with brown skin, and call them black? Then you go to Asia, assign another label, then turn around and call yourself white, even though your skin is not literally white. That alone should tell you this was never about accuracy, it was about hierarchy. And from there, it went deeper. Whiteness became associated with intelligence, civilization, beauty, everything positive. Straight hair, suddenly the standard of beauty. Certain facial features, the ideal. Unfortunately, over time, even some of us started believing those standards. You see people trying to fit into the system that was never built for them in the first place. These ideas didn't come from nowhere. They were reinforced during events like transatlantic slave trade and colonization. These systems helped to justify why millions of Africans could be enslaved, dehumanized, and treated like properties. And speaking of slavery, this narrative that black people sold themselves into slavery is one of the most misleading and dangerous distortions of the history. Yes, there were African intermediaries in some cases, but let's not twist the truth. European slave traders came with weapons, created conflicts, destabilized regions, and built an entire global system of human trafficking. People were captured, forced onto ships, and transported under brutal conditions. There was not a voluntary system. There was violence, there was exploitation. Even hard practices like forced breeding on plantations, where enslaved people were treated like livestock to produce more labor. That alone tells you the level of inhumanity involved. So when that lady came on internet and says that slavery was something that black people chose, that is wrong. That is misleading. So if enslaved people were okay with it, why did they resist? Why did they run away? Why were there rebellions? Why did the black Americans later fight through civil rights movement to gain basic human rights? They thought because they were oppressed. They fought because they were denied freedom, dignity, and opportunity. Now, going back to that white woman who told us the story of how she decided to leave the US to Germany is one of the examples of how also some white Americans are becoming tired of the system that was originally built to benefit them and disadvantage other marginalized groups. Now, the systems in America are affecting more people on the board, including some of these white Americans. Now, the key takeaway for you to go with is to stop allowing people from rewriting the history. When you keep allowing these people to distort the history, it will affect the next generation of Americans. A young person listening to that kind of misinformation might start questioning reality itself. And that is why it is very important for you Americans to call it out directly and with valid facts. That was it for today. I want you to drop your opinions down there in the comment section, and then you tell me what you think about this clip. If you have enjoyed watching this one, please remember to click on the like button and subscribe for more upcoming interesting episodes. Mr. TA signing off. Ciao.